Thank you for joining me for another Quick Hits conversation. I'm Dr. Robyn. With me today, I have Chason Forehand and Atif Agha. And I would like to ask the question, is it possible to unburn a bridge? Chason, can you kick us off?
Sure. When you set the topic, I'm like, you know what? This is perfect for me because I've had this happen a couple of times in my life, actually. And besides telling the story, really, to answer your question, I believe you can. And I believe that it really gets down to two parties having enough humility and putting their pride to the side to say, hey, we both goofed. I'm not going to call out what you goofed. I'm going to just talk about how I goofed. And let's move past that and talk about the future and how we move forward. Being transparent, having good communication, and being humble enough to admit you're wrong and to move forward. So I've actually had this early in my professional life, being in the culinary field where tempers get hot. And I work with some really high-powered chefs. So there were a lot of egos and there was a lot going on. And there's a lot of, when you're in the heat of battle, there's a lot of emotion. So things happen. So I have experienced this and can tell you that from just my personal experience, I believe that you absolutely can unburn a bridge, but it takes both parties wanting to.
Yeah. So, Chason, no, I completely agree with you. I think, yes, you can unburn a bridge, but I want to go back a little bit. Like, how did it get there in the first place, right? Was it in the heat of a moment and you just blew up and something went wrong and you said things that you weren't meant to say? Or were they really brewing somewhere in your heart and you ended up saying it, and you ended up saying things that maybe were more honest? It gave you some courage and you said it. So I think it's a point really goes back to the way I think about it is you have to see why did you burn that bridge in the first place? Were you at fault? Was somebody at fault? Was there something really getting there? And once you understand that better, I think you need to ask yourself an honest question. Is this a good bridge? Do I want to keep that bridge? Is this someone I really want to keep or want to drag along with me because you end up in the same place? So there are people that you meet in life, I feel, that are with you for a long time, and then you realize they are not really best suited for your journey going forward. So that also happens in life. And I think it's very important to shed that extra weight so that you can fly well, or you can go wherever you're trying to go in the new path. So yes, you can unburn a bridge, you can find the reasons, but I think you have to look for, I'll talk about how later, but you have to look for what caused that to happen in the first place.
Yeah, I love that point. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So then that then asks the question, if you've got a bridge that burned, you have to decide, do you want to start rebuilding it? Or if the other person starts rebuilding it, do you want to accept kind of that rebuilt bridge? Well, I think you have to look at it from two different angles. So let's start from bridge has been burnt. And to your point, Atif, it could be for two different reasons, but it's been burnt. Other person comes back to you, wants to rebuild it. How do you decide if you're going to say, okay, I'm willing to bridge this gap again?
Well, go ahead, Chason.
Well, I was just going to say, to your point, I think you have to go back to what burnt the bridge in the first place. So I absolutely agree with you that, yeah, if this was something where, okay, there were high emotions, but you were truthful during that time period. Okay, yes, there were high emotions, and maybe you didn't say it the way you should have in that particular moment, but you spoke the truth and you talked about how you really feel. And that constituted what ended up burning a bridge. Well, yeah, maybe it's time for you to just say, hey, look, how this ended, I didn't say it the right way. And I wish I could go back and change that, but I can't. But I can tell you now that what I said is accurate and is really how I feel. And unless these things change, I really can't move forward with you, or I can't move forward in this circumstance.
And sometimes we end up in this situation because either myself or the other person is dishonest, is doing something wrong, and you end up in that situation. And I think even if that person who was maybe dishonest with you comes to you and say, I want to rebuild our relationship, you have to really question, is this really changed person? Is it something that person, is it really recognizing, acknowledging the mistakes he made? And that's very important, going back to the same thing. Another important point, in my opinion, is yes, you can unburn a bridge. You can, but it's a matter of how you rebuild that bridge. Did you learn from your past mistakes? Are you going to build? And sometimes you come back even stronger. It's even a better relationship. And I think most of us in our relationships, in our friends, in our connections, we go through some of the turbulences, but we come out stronger. Like, we learn better. We have a history. We understand each other better. We do this all the time. We amend, we make amends, and we move forward, and we get better with our relationships. And that's the real test. Have this person lasted the test of time and challenges? Has he been with me in the thick and thin, or is this some person who's just a fair weather friend? And I think that gives you that perspective over time. So yeah, if that person comes to you and say, I really want to get back to you, I want to be your friend, I blew up, I made a mistake. Well, if he's sincere and you feel sincere, yeah, great. Give him a hug, start it all over again, no problem. But if you don't feel it's sincere, you don't feel he's recognizing, acknowledging the problem, it's never going to be the same. Even if you open that communication channel again, I don't think it's ever be rewarding. It's never going to be the same thing.
I think it's the difference between someone coming to you and saying, I'm sorry I hurt you, I'm going to do better next time, and saying, but versus saying, I'm sorry, stop being angry. Right? Because those are two very different stories.
Yeah.
Well, we have the later ones, a lot of those, right? Where the people are like, I don't know what I made wrong, but just don't be angry with me.
Right, exactly. And those bridges are never going to be as strong as the I'm sorry I hurt you bridges are.
Sure.
And so to flip it around, then, if a bridge has been burned and we want to rebuild it, that speaks to that point. You have to go back with the I'm sorry I hurt you. Let's figure out what happened. Let's make sure that doesn't happen again. And I think, to your point, Atif, you said that some bridges can be built back stronger. I've definitely been in situations where bridges have been burned and the person came back and wanted to rebuild the bridge, and I allowed there to be a bridge made, but it was certainly much more flimsy than the bridge that had been there previously.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And again, probably goes back to what we've all been saying, that if there's not that transparent and humble nature of I screwed up and I recognize what I've done, and I'm changed, the behavior's changed, I'm changed as a human being and how I approach these types of situations, then the bridge is never going to be the same. And I think as well, if we don't mentally come to the agreement that we're accepting this wholeheartedly without having any baggage, then the bridge can't be, you're just saying, okay, I'm going to do this, but you're really in the back of your head going, I'm just waiting for them to screw up again. Then you really are not accepting it and moving forward. So
there's another aspect to it that I feel is very important. Like, let's ask a core question. Can people change? Can people really change? If someone is dishonest or not always honest with you or not always upfront, can their core personality change? I'm going to just share my opinion. I think people can change. If it just depends on something that they hit a rock bottom, or sometimes they just have the heart revived in ways that they realize I've not been living a decent or good life, and they change. And I've seen the people like that too. And then people change in many other ways in terms of how they live their life, what their priorities are, and they sometimes life teaches them a lesson and they shift. That could be a really great relationship to build because he values who you are now better than he ever did. But Robyn, your point, if you just build a relationship, bridge back, because it's a compromise, and it's going to be a flimsy bridge. You already know too much about each other. You don't have that trust rebuilt, and you learn from it. You're like, I don't want to fight with this person, but I'm just going to be in connection with it. I don't want to block him either on Facebook. So, well, it's just going to be there. Say hi now and then and just move on. So that happens too a lot with people that we really may not like. And that's okay too. You know, there are people we're never going to like. We just don't align with them. We don't really go along with them, but they're in our life somehow in some capacity.
And we don't have time to get into it, but there is the idea of a one-way bridge too, which you end up with a bridge that's rebuilt, but it only has a motion going one direction. The other person's kind of just a sounding board.
Yeah.
But that is our 10 minutes. So I'm going to have to cut us off there. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. And I look forward to doing it again with both of you very soon.